Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston Station, I'm ready for the event.
KKTV, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Adam Atchison with KKTV. How do you hear me?
Hey, Adam, I've got you loud and clear. Welcome aboard the International Space Station.
Well, thank you, Ms. Ayers. It is a thrill to talk with you. Thank you for making time for us.
Oh, yeah, anytime I get to talk to my hometown, I'm excited. I can't wait to share with you what we're doing up here.
Well, I want to start with something easy. Can you tell us what time it is up there? Some folks are curious about how you keep time in space.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it throws some people off. We work on Zulu time or Green Meanwich time, so it's about 17:15 or 5:15 p.m., so almost getting close to dinner time, but we work off of that time. That way we have kind of a standard day here, and then all of the centers around the world to work on our day. So they come, in Houston, it's 5 hours behind us. I think Colorado, that makes Colorado about 6 hours behind us. So, yeah, but we work on a normal time schedule. We're just on a different time zone.
Yeah, we're about 11:15 in the morning here. Let me ask you, how have the first 4 months been on board the International Space Station? You coming up here in a week or so, it will be that first full month, 4 months.
Man, I can't believe, when you say that, it's hard to believe it's already been 4 months. We've had such an amazing mission already. It feels like it went by in a flash. The launch is still a vivid memory for me. We got up here and we got the Soyuz handover right away, and then we got SpaceX 32, which was a bunch of cargo and science that we were able to do, and now we've got the Axiom crew on board. Anna and I did a spacewalk, so it's been a busy mission, but it's been a lot of fun. We've gotten to do a lot of science and maintenance on board, and then we've had a lot of visitors. So it's been a blast so far. And like I said, the 4 months has gone by really quickly.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about your day-to-day here in a second, but I know one of the things that you did right out the gate was relieve a crew that had been on board the International Space Station for a long time. What was that greeting like as you came on board, and then the exchange of information?
Oh, man, the Crew 9, they felt like family, on the ground. Got to know them once I got to NASA a few years ago, and then getting to see them here and giving Sunny Williams that big hug as she left, as they got into their Dragon and undocked. It was a whirlwind because it was a very quick handover. So, we had about a day with them where they showed us the ropes and showed us the important things and kind of handed off the reins to us to take over living and working on board the space station, and they got to go home and hug their families.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was a relief for them. What were your first impressions of space, getting up there, being on board the ISS, and then starting your day to day?
Oh, man, I think one of my first impressions, and something that is never going to get old, and it's kind of become my party trick, but, when you're first on board here, you have to get used to talking to someone who's on the wall or talking to someone who's on the ceiling, and just being okay with that. Our treadmill is on the wall, our lifting machine or resistance machine is on the wall, and oftentimes there's a compartment right here above me, and you come down and you climb on the ceiling. So just having your brain adapt to up and down not really being a thing here, and being able to float around, that was a big adjustment. And then I think the other thing for me is just the view. I've wanted to take pictures up here, and I got to hand over with Don Pettit and learn all about how he takes pictures and how he does photography, and learned a ton from him, and have been trying to take as many pictures of the Earth and share that view with the world and with all the scientists and researchers out there. So I think the two biggest things for me have been like the brain adaptation and just kind of living and working in space, but then also the view has been absolutely stunning.
I can imagine that's quite an adjustment, and it's fascinating to watch you even demonstrate it right now. Did your training prepare you for that? To what extent were you prepared for the zero gravity or microgravity?
Oh, man, we do a lot of training at Johnson, and we have mock-ups that look just like this module here. So all of these racks, we have very similar training modules, but it's tough to prepare for microgravity. There's really, I would say there's really no comparison. You know, flying airplanes, you can kind of get to 0G for a little bit before the oil system needs to get back to 1G, and so you know you kind of know what it feels like. But to live and work here is very different, you know, and feeling the fluid shift up into, you know, the upper parts of your body, and kind of learning how to live and work in that environment. You know, when I let go of my mic, it doesn't go anywhere. It might float off in a while because of the airflow, but you know, all of those things are tough to train, and so we learn the skills that we need to have to get up here and execute the science and the maintenance. But the adaptation period is a really important period for all of us to kind of figure out how to do life in space, and figure out how to not lose your spoon or lose your microphone if you let go of it and turn around. Sometimes when you turn back, it's not there anymore.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Let's talk about your day-to-day, the work. You mentioned that, right? It isn't just getting to gaze out the window or even greet people, you know, here and there as they come on board, or you do. What does your responsibility look like in space during the day?
Yeah, so we kind of have I would call it a standard daily schedule. You know, the ground team figures out what type of maintenance needs to be done on a regular basis, or, you know, if something breaks, you know, how to fix it. And so they will upload the schedule for us and all of the different procedures that we need to do. And then we actually have a team in Huntsville, Alabama at Marshall Space Flight Center, and they manage all of the science portion of that. And so, you know, especially when the SpaceX Cargo Dragon was here, we had a ton of science on board that Dragon. And so every day, you know, we're working with different centers all over the world. You know, the European Space Agency and Japanese Space Agency, they also had science on board that cargo mission. And so, you know, I think for me, one of the biggest honors of being up here is having a small part of that science. You know, it takes some scientists their entire career of research and effort to get their experiment on board here, and for me it's a privilege and an honor to have a small part of that. And so, you know, it shows up as a little block on our timeline, but it's a huge piece of, you know, what that person worked for their entire life, or what that entire team worked for their entire life to get up here. So I've really enjoyed having a small part of that. You know, we've got the glove box right here next to me. Did a lot of work in that. Actually, we have 2 glove boxes on board. I've done a lot of work in both of those on different types of projects, looking at DNA, looking at different types of medication and how we can process medication better. So there's a lot of really exciting things going on board the International Space Station. You know, at any given moment, there are over 200 experiments happening, both inside and outside.
It's got to be pretty fulfilling. I use that word a lot already today, but to be able to look out, see Earth right in your window, but know that what you're doing is impacting really globally science that is being researched all across the planet.
Yeah, you know, I think it's something that none of us will ever take for granted. You know, every time I look out the cupola or out the wharf, which is the window that we have in the lab that looks straight down on Earth, you know, there's always something fascinating out there. There's always something to take a picture of. There's always something to learn from. And so I think that, yeah, that's one of the biggest parts of our mission here is Earth observations. And, you know, what can we learn about the Earth from this vantage point? You know, we have such a unique vantage point here. And, you know, we've got storms and weather systems, and we've got, you know, floods and natural disasters and hurricanes and all sorts of things that we have a unique point of view on. And so I feel a sense of duty to share that with the researchers and the scientists and the people that are down there. You know, when we look at the Earth, you can see the whole population of the whole Earth, and there are no borders. There's no different solid color, you know, state or country. It's all one giant humanity, and, you know, we only see differences because we see terrain. You know, we see the mountains or the rivers or things like that. And so there's a lot to be gained from looking at the Earth. And then we also look out at space as well. You know, we've got a lot of equipment on the outside of the space station that looks out into the universe to try to learn more as well.
Well, you haven't just been on board the ISS, you've been outside it too. We have video of you making your first spacewalk. Tell me about that experience. How was it?
Oh, man, I think, you know, as an F-22 pilot and a very operationally minded human growing up and for the majority of my career, and then came here, you know, I feel like that's the tip of the spear. You know, it's just you and your crewmates. So me and Ann McLean, we each have our own little spacecraft, our spacesuit that's got its own life support system, its own power system, oxygen and CO2 scrubbing. And then we open that hatch and it's at vacuum. And, I was suddenly vividly aware of just how thin that visor is, when it's just you in the spacesuit and you're looking at the vacuum of space. But we had a job to do and we had several tasks that needed to get done. And it's super rewarding to know that we went out the hatch, we got everything done that needed to get done. We got a couple get-ahead tasks done, and then we came in, we got inside the hatch safely, closed it, and were able to repress safely. So, I think that it was overall a super successful spacewalk. Super proud of everything that we did. We worked through some adversity and some game plan changes in the middle of it, but made it all look really smooth to the average viewer. And so that's our goal as astronauts, is to do the hard things but make it look easy.
Oh, yeah. I want to talk about your ties to Southern Colorado, too. You grew up here, and there are a lot of people that have been keeping track of your journey to space. How did growing up here prepare you for this moment?
Oh, man, I think so. Growing up in Colorado, I went to all the way up through middle school in Colorado Springs and then went to Woodland Park High School. So we lived right there in Colorado Springs and Divide. I have these memories of I've always loved space since I was, just this big. And, I used to drag my family out to the eastern portion, out onto the plains, away from the city lights in the middle of the night to go watch meteor showers. We used to do a ton of hiking and camping. So just the kind of exploratory side of the human brain, that was really tapped into there in Southern Colorado. You've got the mountains right there, and we did a ton of exploring in the mountains as little kids. And then also growing up right there, I knew I wanted to be an astronaut. And then as soon as I knew you could fly the shuttle, because the shuttle was flying during that time, I knew I wanted to be a pilot. And then, it was kind of a natural step watching the Thunderbirds fly over the academy every year. I kind of just, everything fell into place. And as a very little kid, I decided that I wanted to try to get to the Air Force Academy and try to be a pilot in the Air Force and then on to be an astronaut at some point. And so, I think there's so much in the community right there in Southern Colorado that inspired me and allowed me to really pursue my dream and work really hard, but get to where I am today.
Well, you mentioned observing space. We have a lot of areas across Colorado where you can observe the stars, space from the ground, but also the mountains. And I imagine that creates, maybe even in your mind, if you can tell us, kind of a unique and perspective of the distance between sort of the mountains and space.
Yeah, actually, it's pretty phenomenal. We've flown over Colorado a bunch. I have a bunch of pictures of Colorado Springs and Denver and Pueblo and Canyon City and Grand Junction. You name it, I've probably taken a picture of it in Colorado. But, it's amazing with the types of lenses that we use and, how far away we are. I took a picture of Pikes Peak and then I moved just a hair, what I thought was a hair, and I'm pretty sure I ended up in Nebraska. So, it's so amazing. It's fascinating to see how big the world is. And Pikes Peak, when I think of Pikes Peak, I think of like one of the biggest mountains that I grew up seeing, and it's a small dot in the world that we get to see from here. And so it changes your perspective to just realize just how massive the Rockies are as a whole, how massive the Earth is, and just the different types of geology processes that are going on there. So there's so much, like I said, so much to learn about Earth, but I do love taking pictures of Colorado, that's for sure.
I'm guessing too that it's a unique sense of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, maybe humility too, to think of how small maybe where you grew up is from space, but know how much of an important role that you're playing thousands of miles above us.
Yeah, I think humbling is the right word. This, like I said, this has been a dream of mine since I was little. It took a lot of hard work and a lot of teamwork to get to where I'm at. That's kind of what I like to preach to everybody who has a goal or has a desire to go do something, work hard and be a good team player. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think, Colorado Springs is not the biggest city. Woodland Park's definitely not a big city. Divide's even smaller, so it's a testament to what can be done when someone puts their mind to something and works really hard and surrounds themselves with people that are willing to help them and encourage them. And, it's amazing to watch all of the support from Southern Colorado and from that whole area. I have so much support from all of my teachers and coaches and friends in that area who helped support me and supported my goal and encouraged me early on when I wanted to be an astronaut, encouraged me to go to the Air Force Academy. So, yeah, it's been really inspiring as well to see the community rally and really support me. It's been awesome.
We have about 5 minutes left. I want to ask you about the Air Force Academy. What do you think, the most important aspects of your training here and through your military career that helped you become an astronaut?
Yeah, you know, I said I preach teamwork, and I think that's exactly it. You know, I played volleyball at the Air Force Academy, so I was on a team there. And so learning how to take care of other people while you're in stressful situations, that was a huge part of it. But, you know, you're also on a team in your squadron and with your other classmates there at the academy. And again, you're learning how to take care of other people in stressful or austere situations. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing for me, was just learning how to be a good team player. You know, we live and work on board the ISS. Right now there are 11 of us, but on a standard day there are 7 of us up here, and we have to learn how to live and work together in an environment that's austere, and you know, we see each other every single day. And so learning how to be a good human and be a good team player was a huge part of my training and my mission here, but also, you know, in the Air Force as well. You know, you're on a team. It's, you know, in an F-22, you don't go anywhere by yourself. There's at least 2 of you, if not 4 or more of you, and so we employ as a team as well. And so I think that taking care of your buddies, both, you know, in the living environment, but also in the operational environment, has been huge. You know, I described Ann and I going out the door. That's just like a 2 ship of F-22s going into combat. We went out the door and into an austere environment together. And so I think that learning early on as a young adult how to be operational and be a teammate was huge for me.
What's your message to others young people who might have aspirations like yours to get to space?
Yeah, you know, like I said, I had a dream since I was a little kid, and, you know, keep talking about your dreams and find something that you're passionate about. You know, as a kid, I loved math, and so that worked out really well for me on this path, you know, that I wanted to be an astronaut. And so, you know, find something that you're really passionate about, work really hard at it, you know, put your nose to the grinder, work really hard, and then be a good team player, and that will get you anywhere you want to go in life. You know, some people, you'll come across people who might laugh at your joke when you're an adult saying you want to be an astronaut, but just continue to work hard, and you'll run into the right people that will encourage you. So take care of others, work really hard. You can go anywhere you want.
That's excellent advice. Hey, I heard something. It was actually in an interview that we did with you last spring, where you said you grew up watching KKTV. Do you remember some of your favorite stories, maybe your favorite staff members from KKTV when you were young?
Oh boy, yeah, put me on the spot there. You know, I don't know if I remember names exactly, but you know, we you know, we grew up watching the news right there in Colorado Springs, and you know, I think that. Man, one of the things that comes to mind, actually, there was a tornado up in Divide when we were in high school, actually, and so I remember that vividly because it was really close to us. Or the summer that I was going to the Air Force Academy, there was the big mudslide on Ute Pass, so I remember those pretty vividly. But yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not going to remember any names or anything. But yeah, we definitely grew up watching KKTV right there.
You don't have to. I did. I put you on the spot, but I appreciate I appreciate it so much. And thank you, Ms. Ayers, for joining us. It means a lot to be able to talk with you and to have you share your experiences from so high above us. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the support. You know, like I said, Colorado has been an amazing support system for me this whole time. So thank you to everyone back home. And again, welcome to the International Space Station. See you later.
Have a great flight home. Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. Thank you. That concludes our event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.